So today we'll be talking about something exciting. I say back to basics. All right. And we'll be focusing on introduction to blockchain and cryptocurrency. But today we'll be talking about blockchain. So some of the things I'm saying here is what you might have known before, but you know, one thing you need to learn is in the crypto space, nothing ever gets old because some of these things they still come in handy. And when we don't revisit them, we tend to forget them, all right? So that we've heard them or we've taught them before doesn't automatically means that we know them so well. So from time to time, we'll be visiting some of these basic things, not just because of us, but because this is a community and subsequently we'll be having new people join the community. And even those who have been in the crypto space or whatever, some of the things I might be saying, you might not have heard it before, or you might hear it in a different way, or just something that will be very useful to you because anytime I talk about basis of cryptocurrency, I try as much as I can to simplify these things so that everyone can really have a grasp. So even if like you are an intermediate or a pro, you can have a good way to explain to other persons how uh this blockchain thing works, all right? So let's pay attention. It's not for just some person, so it's gonna come in handy for everyone here. So I want to do a shout out to Sasi, Nedu, Danny, Samuel, Stephen, Gideon, and Lawal. So thank you guys for joining in. So you already know this is Caspid, and we will be teaching everything blockchain and cryptocurrency. Yeah, so today I titled this section or this series Back to Basics, and today we'll be talking about introduction to blockchain. So starting from the word blockchain, all right. So from there we'll go into the meaning, go into the structure, and components, uh, how blockchain works, types of blockchain, uh, consensus mechanism, advantages of blockchain, limitations of blockchain, applications of blockchain beyond cryptocurrency, what are smart contracts, examples, then future of blockchain is simply like what is currently going on in blockchain. So I really hope we are able to finish up all this tonight. All right, I really hope we're able to finish up all this tonight. So uh, So kickstarting here, blockchain is simply a decentralized distributed ledger that records transactions across multiple computers so that the record transaction cannot be altered or can't be revoked. So blockchain is simply a kind of technology that records transaction across multiple computers or across different like devices so that the transaction cannot be altered. And anytime I make this when I teach about this blockchain basis, I always use this illustration of a group of businessmen. All right, a group of businessmen that run business together. Let's just say I, Sasi, David, Nedu, and Danny. We are running a business together. All right, we are running a corporate business. And at the end of every day, we record inventory. You know what inventory now is? Inventory simply means okay, what was sold, how much was totally, so how much expenses did you make today, how much profit did you make today, what sales did you make today, how many things are still remaining. Just taking inventory. If you are into business, you should know what the inventory means. Inventory is just taking a statistical update of what happened in your particular business that day. All right. So when we take inventory and we all have our ledger book, if you did business studies, you know what a ledger is. It's where you store, where you write down uh, inventories now, activities, business activities. So your sales, your profit, your net profit, your gross profit, your balance, and everything. So now that ledger book now, I have my own, Sassy has her own, David has his own, Nidu has his own, Danny has his own. All right. So with that now, yeah, we when we come to market, and after the day we record our inventory. And obviously, because it's one business you're running, so every figure should tally. So we run this business for a year, 2 years, maybe we run this business for 6 months, all right, then close to 1 year. So let's just say we started this business in January. Then at the end of the year, all right, we want to go through what was recorded, all right. So, and we now see that we now want to review our book. So to be like, okay, was this a profitable year or wasn't it a profitable year? All right. So once we try to like do that kind of review, so just imagine we now like check out the record book, and you are seeing that my figure is not tallying with every other person's figure. All right. That shows you that there is an error there. All right, that shows you I'm trying to manipulate it. So because my own is not tallying with everybody's own, what it simply means is that that particular data won't be approved. All right, that particular data won't be approved. So this thing happens on the blockchain too, but the blockchain now is, instead of storing inventory as in business, now it's transaction. Okay, so let's just say you can send. I like using Bitcoin because it's first cryptocurrency. Let's just say, oh, I want to send cryptocurrency to Gideon now. I can send 1 Bitcoin to Gideon. All right, and come and say, oh, I sent 2. All right, because every node that recorded that transaction recorded 1. So what is on the blockchain is 1. So even if I can manipulate 1 node and manipulate it to 2, as long as it's not corresponding with other nodes, all right, that means that transaction won't be approved. So that a transaction is approved is that a group of nodes have agreed that, okay, this is good to go. There is an agreement between nodes for a transaction to go on. All right, when I'm explaining how transaction works, it will make more sense to us. So this is basically one thing about the blockchain. So blockchain is basically a decentralized and distributed technology. All right, it stores transaction in a decentralized manner, which means that, or it stores transaction data, whatever, in a decentralized manner, which means that all information is not one place. All right, if you use your okay, then in secondary school, okay, teachers use maybe Excel to record results. Just let me say that you're able to lay your hands on your teacher's laptop. In that Excel sheet, he records the score and edit your own. Automatically, you have edited it. All right. But let's just say that maybe your teacher has his own copy, your head teacher and this thing, and you edit your own, and they are cross-checking it later, and your own doesn't tally. You see, there's a problem for you. All right. So, but because something like Excel is centralized, once you change it in your own now, it should even reflect in all of their own. But blockchain is not like that. Blockchain, each node has a unique operation mode. All right. Each node has a unique operation mode. So this is the cool thing about the blockchain technology. So I hope the definition is clear. Let me just simplify the definition. Blockchain is a decentralized distributed ledger that records transaction across multiple computers. All right, so that transactions cannot be altered. So this is like the simplest meaning you can get to what blockchain is. All right, so the structure of the blockchain. So the blockchain is composed of series of blocks. All right, the blockchain is composed of a series of blocks, each containing a list of transactions. All right, and these blocks are linked together in chains in a chronological order. Okay, so you get the gist now. The whole concept of blockchain came from block and chain. So now that block is simply composed of this thing. That block now is simply storing transaction. All right. It is composed of a series of blocks. The blockchain is composed of a series of blocks. So when it comes to the blockchain now, if you like maybe try to browse like okay, let me just try and browse a picture of blockchain so that you get the gist I'm trying to share here. Sorry, give me a sec. So let me share my screen so that you follow me properly. Can you see my screen now? If you can see my screen, please unmute and speak.
I can see it, sir.
Okay, great. So if you can see my screen now, so if you look at me, okay, perfect. So if you look through this, if you just go to Google and search and you're looking through this image, you see that blockchain is always presented in block and there is a connecting line between these blocks. If you look at here now, you are seeing these are blocks. So there are connecting lines in these blocks. Even if you look at here, all right. So this is just a physical illustration of what the blockchain looks like. All right. So these blocks now are different transaction records and they are connected. So these lines now are chains. So this blockchain is just block of transaction being arranged, being chained together. So this transaction, when you carry out a transaction, it is stored in blocks. All right. Once you carry out a transaction, it's stored in blocks. And these blocks are connected in chains. Okay. So, and if you look at the connection, it is not like end-to-end connection. It is like a multi-connection. Okay. So it is like a multi-connection. So it is decentralized. This, if it's just like a one-sided connection, you see that it's centralized. But the way the connection is, you are seeing that there is no powerhouse dispersing network. This thing is standing on its own. All right. So this is to specifically show you that the blockchain is decentralized. Data are stored in a decentralized manner. So that English I spoke to you explaining what blockchain is, this is just basically the physical representation of it. So this is where you need to understand when they tell you things like, oh, blockchain is immutable. All right. So that will bring me to the next thing I'll talk about. Blockchain is immutable. And the immutability of blockchain means that once a transaction is recorded in a block and added to a blockchain, all right, this thing makes it extremely difficult, all right, to tamper with the proof of record. So this thing I said now is like once a transaction gets into this blockchain, so once you use your phone, you go through or open your Trust wallet, send Ethereum to someone. Once you carry out that transaction, you can't reverse it. That's like another thing. Crypto transactions are irreversible. You can't say, oh, you made mistake, you sent more than the amount. All right. So let you withdraw the transaction. You can't appeal to anybody because it's decentralized. All right. So you can't call any bank, you can't call any customer care. Even if you're using an exchange and maybe you write to the exchange and be like, oh, they can't do anything. They can only reach out to the person, the wallet. If the wallet is sent to it is a Binance wallet, maybe use Binance to send out money, and the wallet address is a Binance exchange wallet address. They can only like maybe try to reach out to the person and make a request. The only time they have rights to block that person's account is if how do I put it? It's if it's a scam issue. Maybe they got scammed. But if you're the one that willingly sent your money, like out of mistake, maybe you wanted to send $50 and send $500. All right. It's your problem. I think there was this Nigerian guy that was celebrated on Twitter one time. There was a giveaway. He won it, and the giveaway price was $100. So, but it was $100 worth in sold. But the guy that was performing the giveaway, like the guy that was in the giveaway, did 100 Solana to this guy. All right. As far as this transaction has gone out, there was no how that guy could revert that transaction. So all he did was to reach out to the guy and be like, oh, I was to send you $100. All right. But I mistakenly sent 100 Solana. And that 100 Solana is like, then I think Solana was around $150. So that was like maybe 150 times 100 is 15K. That is $15,000. All right. So you get the gist. So we have to be very careful with transactions. So why I talk about some of these basic is from time to time, even people who have been around the crypto space still make some very funny mistakes. So when carrying out a transaction, cross-check. As you're cross-checking the amounts, cross-check wallet address. That's why I mentioned make sure you are sending to the right wallet address. This is why when people send transactions to wrong blockchains, maybe you are supposed to carry out a BSC transaction, then you are pasting your Ton wallet address or Solana wallet address. It's going to be a failed transaction. The money will never reach to where it's going to. All right. So this is part of, because when we say, oh, blockchain is immutable, it can be tampered with. This is another part to it. All right. So it can be tampered with means even if you make mistake, you can't change it. So once it has gone into the blockchain, once you click on send, approve, the money, Agaba, it has started going like that. So whether you made a mistake or not, you've executed the command and it cannot be altered practically. All right. So I extensively showed this so that we'll talk about it. So this series really lasts for a long time because I've just, for the past 15 minutes, I'm just giving you introduction on like the basics of blockchain, like what blockchain means. All right. So we're talking about the key components of blockchain. So there are key components of blockchain. And number one we're mentioning is blocks. I already mentioned blocks. So this block now is, like I mentioned earlier, is how transactions are being stored in the blockchain. So when you perform a transaction, that transaction appears in the blockchain as a block. Or you listen to this now. Each block in the blockchain contains data, a unique hash, an encrypted digital fingerprints, and the hash of the previous block linking them together. So what does this simply mean? It simply means that blocks are connected together in the blockchain, and each block has this unique hash is a unique identity. That's why if you perform the transaction before, someone tell you, oh, send the transaction hash. All right. So that transaction hash is simply that transaction hash now is simply is my screen still sharing? Oh, sorry. So that transaction hash now is simply this thing showing that, oh, this particular transaction was carried out. So it's that transaction hash. So it's like a record. So I'll be trying to illustrate something for us to show you what a transaction hash looks like. So I'll just head to Trust Wallet and pick up like a transaction. Okay, that was done. Or maybe let me head to, I don't know that my Binance will open and maybe pick up. I don't know if this will show well. Okay, let me use. Sorry, forgive me. So I'll copy this now. Let me see if it's display well or not. Okay, this was a BSC transaction. BSC. Sorry, let me share my screen so that you see what I'm doing. So, okay, so I should share my screen. So basically, so let me share my screen so that you see what I'm doing, so you guys are not lost. So you can see my screen now, yeah, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Fine. So I went to my Binance. I handled a couple of transactions. So I came here. So now, when you look at so this thing now is to show you, okay, I made a withdrawal of 5,550 USDT. So address, this is the address I sent it to. This thing now is the transaction ID. This is what you call transaction hash. So this is a unique set of numbers that recorded this particular transaction I carried out. So if I want to check out where this transaction is on the blockchain, I will simply copy this number. And okay, that is why you call, there's also something called blockchain explorers. These blockchain explorers are things you've heard about, things like BSC scan, Etherscan, Solscan. These are blockchain explorers. These are just like, like now, we have the blockchain, then we have different blockchain networks. So these different blockchain networks, like now I mentioned Etherscan, BSC scan, they have their unique. So when a transaction is carried out on Solana, so you go to Solscan, copy, if this transaction was a Solana transaction, now we did this transaction to Solana. If you can see, this transaction was through BSC, Binance Smart Chain. So how we can check this transaction on the blockchain is through BSC scan. So I already copied the transaction hash. All right. So I will head to here, BSC scan. So this is a Binance Smart Chain Explorer. So BSC scan, Etherscan. So here, so now I want to search for, you can see the BSC scan platform here. Hope you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, fine, good. So now you are seeing search by address, search by transaction hash. So that transaction ID I copied, it's also transaction hash. So when someone says, oh, send transaction ID, send transaction hash, it's the same thing they're talking about. All right. When someone they can say send ID is the transaction ID, send hash is the transaction hash. They're just telling to send that unique identity of the transaction. So basically now, like I said, so even if like maybe you send someone money to someone, all right, let me tell you the importance of the transaction hash now. Okay, I'm already explaining transaction hash, and okay, so let me tell you the importance of the transaction hash. This transaction hash now is what gives a proof that the transaction was carried out. If you carry out a blockchain transaction and there's no transaction hash, there's no proof. It's just like going to market and buying, or maybe you send money to someone and say, you should send proof of payment. So this transaction hash is just simply proof of transaction. This is a proof that this transaction was carried out. And why it is very legit is simply because it's on the blockchain. So blockchain doesn't lie. You heard there is this number, they say numbers don't lie, but blockchain through actually doesn't lie. So all right, so I'm just trying to give us a background. I know I've not really thought in this angle so much before, so I really want us to understand some of these little things when they happen, so that because some of us who are you handle big transactions, you look for job, because sometimes I've experienced one or two misunderstandings with payments. And the only thing that can clarify it is that, you provide the transaction hash. So this transaction hash now, I think I should just show you guys and stop talking. So as you can see, transaction hash, see the transaction hash here. So status, success. So this is showing that, this was a successful transaction. See the block number, block 4,340,000, sorry, block 4,3,477,572. Okay, so this is actually the block number on this BSC blockchain. Are we good? So are we following?
Yes, sir.
Good. So if you look at it here now, so this is like a receipt. This block agent is just like a receipt giving you the status of a transaction. So if that transaction didn't go through, it will show you things like pending. All right. This success now will be showing pending. All right. So now, timestamp. This was when the transaction was executed 36 hours ago. October 27th, at exactly 7. Like this thing picks the time at down to seconds. 7 4 that is 4 minutes past 7 a.m. But this is a UTC. So I made the transaction from Nigeria. So that was like 8. This was like 8:04. Just 30 seconds past 8:04. That was when I performed transaction. So that's when this thing was recorded. So see the action, transaction action. We drew $5,550. Okay. Then they subtracted a fee and stuff. So from Binance, all right. So this is where they put the money from and sent it to. So you see where they sent the money. So from this wallet now to this wallet, you see. So everything is so clear. Okay, so everything is so clear. So they are showing you like, the transaction was carried out. So here now, so why I seeing gas fee price, transaction fee, why is 00 is simply because this thing is not an on-chain transaction. But it's not like it's not an on-chain transaction, but I personally carried the thing out, like, because Binance is a centralized this thing. So I just initiated the request and they performed the transaction themselves, but it's recorded on the blockchain. BNB is not BNB. Binance Smart Chain is a side chain. It's a side chain of the EVM. It's not really operating on EVM, like Ethereum virtual machine. So it's a side chain. That's why it uses the same address as EVM. I won't go into that right now. But basically what I just wanted to show you that this hash now I copied. If it's a BSC, you go to bscscan.com and paste that transaction hash. It will pull up the transaction receipt. It's good as pulling up a receipt of a payment. You went to a store to buy a fridge and you buy the fridge finish and they gave you a receipt. You went home and they called you tomorrow and tell you that, you didn't pay for that receipt. You didn't pay for that goods. Since you show the proof of payment, maybe you made a transfer, you show them the transfer and you show them the receipt. All right, you show them the receipt of like, they gave to you when you made the payment. So this is what a hash means. So it's just like a unique set of numbers that is able to detect your particular transaction in the blockchain. So you see, the crazy thing about this thing just pinpointed the particular block this transaction is on the blockchain. So another, I've mentioned 2 components now. I've mentioned blocks, all right, and I've mentioned hash. Okay, so block is hash transaction are being stored on the blockchain. Why hash is simply that unique identifier. Okay, that unique identifier. So what makes a block different from another block is the hash. So what makes a transaction different from another transaction is the hash. All right. So hope we are following. Hope we are following.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Full
Okay, great. So I really hope I'm communicating well. Okay, great. I really hope I'm communicating well. Please, if you have any question or you have any this thing, you find anything confusing with what I'm saying, call my attention. And please, if you have any question, note down your questions already. I'll answer them shortly once we are rounding up. All right. So the third thing I'm going to talk about is nodes. Nodes are simply computers that participate in blockchain network or blockchain transactions. All right. So I was telling you something when I was defining blockchain. I told you that blockchain stores data in a decentralized manner, and that decentralized manner is simply nodes. I've mentioned that blockchain is powered by different powerhouse. Unlike our Web2 system now, okay, like a big company like Meta. Meta now is a centralized platform or it's a centralized technology, because you see when you make a post on Facebook, either they automatically carry it out for you on IG, or they tell you can make a post on IG. I think even it came down to WhatsApp that time. All right, when you put out a post on Facebook, it can be like, oh, a post on WhatsApp, and be like, oh, share to Facebook, or you just made it something like that. So this is to show you that this are connected, they are centralized. And I remember that time when Meta suffered downtime all across their platform. All right, all across their platform, the thing went down. The world looked to that. WhatsApp wasn't working, Facebook wasn't working, Instagram wasn't working. I think they were not working. So I think then, funny thing, people started downloading even to go that time, but Telegram was up and running, because that's why part of the reason why we use Telegram. I don't really trust Zuckerberg and his applications. Sorry. All right, but that's why we actually use Telegram, because Telegram is a lot more stable and has some Web3 implementation. All right, so this is simply what nodes are. So nodes now are those computers, different computers that contribute in powering the blockchain. So blockchains are blockchains because these computers are powering it. All right, so these nodes are also the things that help approve transaction and help entail there's transparency in the blockchain. So remember that illustration I used earlier about the 5 businessmen. So now in the question of node now, those 5, me, Nedu, Sasi, Danny, and who did I mention again? I think that was Gideon. 4 of us or 5 of us, each of us are representing a node in terms of blockchain now. So we have our own record book. So that means if once a transaction is carried out, or once a transaction is carried on, these different nodes participate in performing a transaction. They all approve and agree that, oh, this transaction is good to go. All right. So this is the job of nodes, and that's why I say things like blockchain cannot have a downtime. All right, because even if maybe one node fails, automatically another node picks up a transaction or picks up that activity that node did. So in the terms of the illustration we are using, so let's just say, 5 of us are doing business, and mistakenly I lose my own ledger book. All right, I lose my own ledger book. The other 4 guys have the ledger book, so business can still go, record can still be taken. All right, but let's assume that all of us are using one inventory, one book, and that book gets missing. You see that there's already a problem. You see, there's already a problem. So this is why decentralization can never be compared to centralization. So centralization now is just like, 5 of us doing business and we are using one inventory, one ledger book. Why decentralization means 5 of us are doing business and 5 of us have our different ledger books. So it is decentralized. Everybody has his own copy. Everyone has his own data. All right. So this is the concept of Web3, ownership. Okay. This is the concept of Web3. So I think something I might mention next week before I start teaching was the evolution of web. It's something I'll mention where we have the Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, and talk about how the blockchain thing how blockchain falls under Web3 and everything. All right. So the whole idea of ownership and decentralization is what blockchain is bringing to the table, and this thing is being carried out through the help of nodes. Am I communicating? Please, if I'm communicating, drop a thumbs up for me in the community. He said I'm will hear of this. Please, I'm just teaching. This is for educational purposes, please. Sorry, if you are following me, drop a thumbs up in the community if you are following what I'm saying and it's entering. All right, great, nice one. So another key component I'm mentioning is consensus mechanism. These are not like all the components. Like if you go to our YouTube and watch our previous videos, I've mentioned a lot of things, even blockchain layers and the rest of them, but this is basic. So I'll be saying the things, I'm mentioning most things that apply to the basics. All right. So consensus mechanism. Consensus mechanism is the process used by nodes in a network to agree to validate a transaction. All right. So consensus mechanism is just simply that process that helps transaction, or that process that approves a transaction by these different nodes that I explained earlier. So like I was telling you guys that one of the job of the node is that they help carry out transaction, or they carry out transaction. So the process of approving and carrying out that transaction now is what we call nodes. Is what we call consensus mechanism. So that process of a transaction being carried out is simply what consensus mechanism is. Then talking about consensus mechanism, we have two key types of consensus mechanism. We have the proof of work and the proof of stake. So this proof of work, blockchain like Bitcoin blockchain falls under proof of work, or they use the proof of work consensus mechanism, while Ethereum use the proof of stake mechanism. All right. And people under the proof of work, these nodes under the proof of work mechanism are called miners. All right. These nodes, they are called miners under the proof of work consensus mechanism. Then under the proof of stake consensus mechanism, they are called validators. All right. Hope you guys are taking note of these things I'm saying. So they are called validators. They are people, or nodes on the proof of work are called miners. Then nodes using the proof of stake like Ethereum platform are called stakers, or they are called validators. Even though all of them validate transaction, but they are mostly called validators. All right. Hope you guys are following what I'm teaching. Please, I'll like the chat to be buzzing to show you, to ginger me. I'll like it to be gingering me. Thank you. All right. So where I'll be wrapping it up tonight is how blockchain works. How does the blockchain work? All right. So I intentionally don't want this class to be extensively so long. I will take my time. There's no rush. There's a lot of things to explain. So there's a lot of things to teach. So this section, this series, I won't rush it. I want to really take my time, share my screen, make explanation, so that everybody will really understand these things. All right. So we'll be talking about how blockchain works. How does the blockchain work? Because most of us now, all you know is send your wallet address and they send you crypto. All right. But what really happens behind the scene? What really happens in the blockchain? So, step 1, transaction initiation. So, transaction initiation is when a transaction is created by someone. All right. It's created by someone. Say the person wants to transfer a cryptocurrency. This is what a transaction initiation means. So I tell you, oh, Nedu, what's up? You have been an active member of this community. Send your wallet address. Sure you get. So now you send me your wallet address and I say, oh, I'm going to give you 1 Bitcoin. And I tip you 1 Bitcoin. I not say you send your wallet address, so it's an example I'm giving. So so in the example I'm giving, no, if you drop your wallet address, you do GoFundMe for you. So so I'll send you 1 Bitcoin. So when I initiate that transaction now and it goes into the blockchain, that means I've initiated a transaction. That means I've made a broadcast to the network. So now in the Bitcoin blockchain now, they'll be like, oh, someone just made a request for a transaction to be approved. All right. So this is the first step, transaction initiation. All right. Transaction initiation is the first step. Hope we are following. So transaction initiation is simply, I broke down how blockchain works into 4 steps, all right? So the first step now is the transaction initiation, which I already mentioned. So transaction initiation is when you copy a wallet address or you want to send money. You've made the transaction or you've made the transaction request, all right? So if you're like, oh, I want to send this, and click on send, all right? So that, you notice, why I want to, before I continue, let me explain something. If you've used like an exchange before to send money, maybe Solflare, all right, because I've been doing a lot with Solana lately. Solflare now, you fund it with Solana and be like, oh, you want to perform a transaction on Solana, then I'll be like, oh, send your Sol address, or maybe I want to use TechBot and be like, send me your Telegram username, I want to tip you, all right? So send me your Telegram username, I want to tip you. So what I'll simply do is copy your Telegram usernames, then perform the transaction. So once I click on send, you'll notice that the app I'm using will load for some time. So that preloading or that loading we do for some time is simply the transaction is processing. So that the fact I click send doesn't mean that the transaction has automatically been completed. Yes, it might take seconds, it might take, but it doesn't happen that instance. So all I try to explain to you is that once you click on send, before that money gets to that person, this thing happens. This is the process of flow. All right. This is the process of flow. What happens from your end when you send out the money to where the money gets to the third party now, all right, or to the second party, since it's a pay-to-pay this thing. Moves from you, there is the first party, the second party, third party is like a third body. So not third party, second party. All right. So I already mentioned transaction initiation. All right. I already mentioned the transaction initiation. Then the step 2 point is validation. Validation. What is a validation? Validation simply means where these nodes I talked about earlier. All right. These nodes I talked about earlier validates this transaction using blockchain's consensus mechanism, ensuring it's legitimate. Let me explain. Sorry, I'm speaking plenty English. Now, the validation of the transaction is done by these nodes. I've mentioned what nodes are earlier. So the process of this validation process now, the process of this validation is what we actually call consensus mechanism. So that thing that makes be like, oh, this transaction is a legit transaction, or this transaction is a nice transaction, is consensus mechanism. That process is called consensus mechanism. That is why if like Solana now, there's a time, or people that have used Solana or Ton, there's a time if you try to perform a transaction, they will tell you transaction failed. Who has experienced something like that? If you have experienced, try to carry out a transaction, it mustn't be sending money. Transactions are different. It's not just sending someone cryptocurrency transaction. If you want to stake on a staking platform, it's transaction. If you want to withdraw from a platform, it's transaction. If you want to swap a token, it's transaction. All right. It's not just sending and receiving that is transaction. Transaction is any activity that you perform on the blockchain. It is being considered a transaction because it's an exchange from one wallet address to another wallet address, all right, or from one platform to another platform. So I just want to clear something. If you've performed a transaction or tried to perform a transaction and the third transaction failed, let's just drop an emoji in the community and I'll explain to you why that transaction fails, because that thing falls under validation. Is there anybody? Let me just continue. Okay. So let me just continue because I've experienced it. So there was a time in the Solana ecosystem, there was what you call conjunction. So conjunction in the blockchain simply means, I'm explaining another terminology now. That's good. You people will learn today. So, oh, nice. So conjunction in blockchain simply means when the transaction rate is way higher than what the nodes can handle. What do I mean? The transaction volume, the volume of transaction requests is way more than what nodes can handle. So this is to say that there are a lot of people trying to perform a transaction and the nodes are not enough to carry out this transaction. This is what causes congestion in a blockchain. That is why they tell you, oh, I think somewhere in March, Solana suffered that a lot because Solana was hot. A lot of people were building a lot of things and there were not enough nodes to be able to take care of the transaction. So this was what caused congestion, and this congestion will lead to transaction failure. So if you perform a transaction, all right, and that transaction is not being validated, that is where you have things like transaction failure or transaction error, all right, or transaction failed, simply because there was no node to either there was something with your transaction or there was no node to validate that transaction. So once there's no node to validate that, oh, this transaction now is legit and is good to go, that transaction won't be approved. You have to keep trying. All right. So this is the second stage of carrying out a transaction, the validation stage. So I mentioned the first one, transaction initiation. The second one is validation stage. Then step 3 or stage 3 is block formation. Block formation. So once validated transactions are grouped into blocks. So once validated, so once a transaction is validated, let's just say, oh, the validation stage goes through and a node validates your transaction. That transaction now is now grouped into a block. As I mentioned earlier, when you carry out a transaction, it is represented on the blockchain as a block. It's called block of transaction. So its transaction is now represented as a block. Then each block now is now linked to the previous block in the blockchain. So see the thing now, it's just like there is a chain and you are stacking a block into that chain. So once a new transaction happens and is validated, it's now being represented in the blockchain as a block. So that block now goes to join with the just concluded validated transaction. So it's now going in as stacks and connecting. So the thing is just being stacked together. So once there's a new transaction validated, like there's a new block coming in, it goes and joins to the just like the block that came in before that one. This is to show you that the block doesn't go to go and pair. It doesn't pair randomly. Are you with me? The new blockchain, the block that is coming into the blockchain, it doesn't just go pair randomly. It doesn't just go to go and sit on any block or pair with any other block. It pairs with the just concluded block or the block that just came in before him. All right. So if I'm block number 1, I'm block number 1 now, or I'm block number 70, and a new block is coming into the blockchain, that will be block number 71. That block number 71 is coming to meet me. That is block number 70. So that block 71 is coming to pair with block 70. So it doesn't go to pair with block 1 or block 2 or block 3. It comes, so this creates that loop. All right, that synchronization, that creates that loop, it creates that arrangement. This is how the blockchain technology is being programmed. So step 3 is block formation. So this is how the block now, the transaction is connected to a block, gets validated. So once it's validated, it goes into the blockchain as a block and stores with the previous block, forming a blockchain. Are we good? If you're understanding me, please drop. I say you should be motivating me in this group chat. When I don't stop, be motivating me. If you are paying attention and understanding me, please be dropping a message. So you had one burst. Sorry. No, you can't. Sorry. It's a gradual process. Maybe you try to the recording will be up on the platform tomorrow, so you can re-listen to the class and drop your question. Then the last step I'll be mentioning tonight is the fourth step. All right. So which I already mentioned partly, which is adding to the chain. So now I mentioned transaction initiation, validation, block formation. All right. This is when the transaction is being validated, it turns into a block before going into the blockchain. Then the fourth step is now the adding to the chain. So this is like where a block now is being added to the blockchain, creating transparency and permanent record. So now this is simply saying that once a block or a transaction goes from initiation to validation and to formation and comes down to the chain, nothing can happen again. So if you are not able to tamper with it at the initiation level or validation level or formation level, once it gets to the adding to the blockchain, addition now, once it gets to addition, which is adding that new block to the blockchain, it's now like permanently stored. This is where the transaction hash now is being generated. Are you with me? So that transaction hash that is being generated now is to identify, okay, this is because when that block is coming in, the block doesn't have a number yet. All right. So it is when that block is now paired into the blockchain, that is why you can now say, oh, this is block number 71. So this is when that block now adds to the blockchain. Like that transaction hash I showed you guys, you see it was 4,377,570 something or 500 and something. All right. So that now is the identity of that block. All right. So, and that identity can only be given when that block is already connected to the blockchain itself. So this is simply now the process of the process of carrying out a transaction. So if there is something you have learned today, is you've learned what blockchain is, the blockchain structure, the immutability of blockchain, the key components, which I mentioned, blocks, hash, nodes, the consensus mechanism, then how blockchain works. You have the transaction initiation, the validation, transaction validation, the block formation, and addition to the chain. So this is just a little summary of everything we have been discussing for the past 45 to 50 minutes. All right. So I'll be giving it a stop here, and I would like you to ask your questions. So are you with me, guys? So